Welcome to Learn English with Fun with 𝐿𝑠𝑎𝑠𝑟𝑖𝑎.
In the modern-day work environments, there are many ways to communicate with colleagues. How can you communicate clearly on video calls? What are the rules for instant messages at work? And when is the best time to use each kind of communication? In this episode of Office English, Clarity, our Australian AI robot, and 𝐄𝐩𝐢𝐬𝐿 talk about the language you need to communicate well at work.
I communicate with my workmates over phone calls, video calls, even instant messages. There are so many ways to communicate at work. My boss, 𝐿𝐵𝒈, assured in his last episode with Mr. Chip that he would take up office communications over these medium. I took interest and am inviting my boss.
I hardly ever use phone calls at work. They are almost always video calls. Yeah, I can't remember the last time I made an actual phone call. It is really easy to just message someone at work or start a call online. I might call somebody on the phone if there is something urgent, but I don't think I use phone calls at work as often as before. Instant messages are very useful at work. We use them all the time.
In this episode of Office English, we are looking at the language for calls and texts at work. Remember, if you need any help with your English language skills, then be sure to check out with 𝐿𝑠𝑎𝑠𝑟𝑖𝑎 by subscribing to our Spotify podcasts or search Learn English with Fun. If you don't have a Spotify account, you can visit www.𝑠ahasriya.com for the complete set of our podcasts, which are categorized as per the discussion. Do note that our podcasts are short and impactful and are posted twice a week.
Welcome to Office English from Learn English with Fun with 𝐿𝑠𝑎𝑠𝑟𝑖𝑎, your guide for this podcast to the language of business. I am Clarity, the Australian robot.
And I am 𝐿𝑠𝑎𝑠𝑟𝑖𝑎, and we are here to talk about the more difficult parts of speaking English at work. In our previous episode, we were talking about emails, but there are loads of other ways that people communicate in the workplace today. Check that episode if you are looking to learn the language for chasing up people over emails. Now, what's your favorite mode to communicate, Clarity?
I think my favorite is actually a video call. I think it is so useful, now that lots of people work from home, some of the time, to be able to have a video call and to talk with people, and it means that a meeting can be quite productive because you can prepare what you want to say in advance, and you don't have the pressure of being in the room with people. I find that quite useful, actually. What about you, 𝐿𝐵𝒈?
I think I like instant messages because they are kind of immediate. They are kind of, you can get a quick answer quite often. You can chat quite easily. You can look back and see what someone has said. I think they are quite practical and they just feel a lot freer than an email.
Yeah, but we should talk about instant messages because not everybody has those at work. So, an instant message is what a lot of offices use now, so that when you are working at home, working remotely, you can still keep in touch really easily with the people that you work with. So, it will be a messaging platform that might be part of your email, or a different app, at work, and you can talk to your colleagues like you might do on your phone. You can also have the messages on your phone. So it makes it really easy. And yeah, those are really popular now. and we use them here at 𝐻𝑒. But, with all these different ways to talk to colleagues at work, making sure you say the right thing is quite stressful, even if you speak English like a pro. So, we are going to look at some useful phrases to use, whether you are talking on a video call, using an instant messaging app, or making a good old-fashioned phone call.
Always remember that if you need additional help with your grammar, if you want to understand everything you hear or read and you want to express yourself completely, then check out www.𝑠ahasriya.com, where you can take great online English courses on a range of different topics. Let us start with video calls. We talked about the difficult language for meetings in the first episode of our Office English series before on this podcast. But having a meeting via video can make things even more complicated. What phrases can you help us here, Clarity?
Well, lots of the phrases around video calls are usually around technology. So, if there are problems on the video call, and lots of people listening will have experienced this. So we need to know phrases like "could you mute, please?" to tell somebody to turn their microphone off. Or "you are on mute" to tell someone their microphone is turned off and they need to turn it on to speak. But it is also useful to be able to say things like "my internet is slow" or "I am going to turn off my video because my internet is not stable," which means, I am going to try and help the call, and then the other one is "your video is freezing," which means, your video is not very good because your internet connection is bad. There is a lot of language around the technology of video calls. 𝐿.
There is one I like. It is, "Oh, sorry, you are breaking up. I didn't catch that."
Yeah. Which you can also use if you were not listening and you need them to repeat.
Don't give away the secrets, Clarity.
But then, you also need to be able to interrupt during a video call. Now, this can be really difficult because, when everyone is talking on a video call, it is harder to know when someone is about to speak. You might have noticed when you use a video call, people often talk over each other. So, you can use some phrases like "could I stop you for just a moment?" or "sorry, would you mind if I asked a quick question?" Being polite at all times when you are trying to interrupt because you might not get the natural pause like you do in an in-person meeting.
Yeah, and sometimes on the different platforms that people use, there are things where you can put your hand up or show a little picture or something to say that you want to say something.
Yeah, and that can be a good way, if you are chairing a meeting, to keep on top of when people want to speak. So, there are lots of technical language for video calls. But what about sending text messages or instant messages at work? How do these work, 𝐿?
Yes. The great thing about instant messages is they are very quick and they can be very immediate. But of course, that also causes a problem sometimes because maybe we expect an immediate response. Or maybe when someone sends it to us, we think they expect an immediate response. We feel under pressure and we need to stop doing what we are doing, or we are in a meeting somewhere else and you need to respond immediately. So it puts up in a tricky situation at times. So it is quite good to use phrases when you're sending it saying, "when you have a moment," or "sorry to bother you." Actually, and also if when you do get a message, you are quite busy and you can't respond, are there any good phrases you could use for that, Clarity?
Yeah. You could just say "I am in a meeting right now," I will get back to you later, or
I am really sorry. I don't have time. Maybe ask.
Govind. Yeah, and also I think, when you want to send an instant message to somebody, you should think about what you are messaging them. So what the topic is, so is instant message the best place for your conversation because things get lost so easily if they are in an instant message because the chat carries on and it is hard to search for something. So, if it is an important thing, or a document, or something that somebody might need to find again, an email might be better. But if it is more like, oh, it is going to be much quicker if we quickly chat about it, a bit like you might do if you thought I am going to phone somebody, then that is when you use an instant message.
Now, there is that one thing that I think is a little bit complicated about instant messages, and that is, in a way, we don't have many rules yet on how to use them. So I think we can sometimes be incredibly informal in instant messages, much more so than you would ever be on an email. But then on the other hand, sometimes you do have to instant message someone who you don't know so well, or they are very important, or you have to get through to them, and we might change the way that we send our message. We might suddenly become much more formal, and it looks like a little bit like an email, the things that we are sending, or lines from an email.
Yes.
What do you think about emojis and GIFs in an instant message?
Oh, we like emojis. I think that is the place for an emoji. If it feels like that is the way other people at your work are using it, then definitely, go for it. The reason that these platforms exist is to try and create a sense of being in the office but when you are not. So they are supposed to be more chatty. They are supposed to be friendlier. But yeah, just keep an eye on what other people are doing. So try and look at other messages people send to you and respond in a similar way.
Right. So, we have covered video calls and instant messages. Two new ways to talk to people at work. But sometimes you just need to pick up the phone and call somebody. Now, are there any phrases that can help us with that clarity?
Yes, so, when you are calling someone on the phone, and you might already be familiar with this, you want to introduce yourself and check that you have got the right person. So you might say, "Hi, this is Clarity from Sahasraya."
Is that Govind speaking?
That is when you are calling somebody from outside your organization or somebody that you don't know. But because we use phones often, it might be useful to check the person is free to speak to you. So, especially if you are calling them out of the blue, so that means you are calling them and they did not expect a call from you, you say, "Is now a good time to talk?" Or,
Do you have a few minutes to talk about this?
just a polite way of checking that they have the time to speak to you because people get annoyed if you call them out of the blue.
Yes. And another thing that I sometimes do when I am calling, often when I call someone, it is because I've got a problem and I need to get it sorted out. So I am calling other departments and I don't know whether they can help me or not. I might just say, "I don't know if you can help me, but," or "I don't know if this is the right place, but." That is something I say quite a lot, and it often is not the right place. Sometimes they can point you to the right place to call.
They are much more likely to be helpful if you start the call in a friendly way, rather than demanding something. For instance, the IT department, as soon as you call them. Just like when you are writing an email, Taking the time to study how other people at your workplace use messages, video calls and phone calls to communicate can be really useful to make sure you get the tone of your language right and that you are using the right platform for the right message.
Let us hear again from our colleagues at Sahasriya.
I might call somebody on the phone. If there is something urgent, but I don't think I use phone calls at work as often as before. I hardly ever use phone calls at work, they are almost always video calls. Yeah, I can't remember the last time I made an actual phone call.
It sounds like, as the workplace changes, as more of us work from home or remotely and, as we have more access to the internet, people use phones a lot less, and video calls and messages more. What do you think, Govind?
I think it might depend upon what industry you work in. I think some people might be very keen on making lots of phone calls, whereas in others, it is much more based on email. So it does depend a little bit on the culture of the company you work in and maybe the type of company that you are working for as well. That is it for this episode of Office English. Remember, there are loads of more courses and activities to help you with your English at work at www.sahasriya.com.
Next time, we will be talking about mistakes in the language we can use when things go wrong at work.
Oh, I think I might need that one too. See you then. Bye.
Bye.
Let us get into the interesting facts section. Do you have some interesting facts for this episode?
Japan has one vending machine for every 23 people. It is thought to have one of the highest densities of vending machines in the world. While most sell various types of beverages, others feature ice creams, noodles, and disposable cameras.
Yeah, I have heard that these vending machines are programmed to provide free soft drinks during emergencies and natural disasters such as earthquakes and tsunamis. They can even work on power outage as they are powered with backup batteries and generators. Nice thought process there.
Do you know what is wet water? No? I am not sounding crazy. Firefighters generally use chemicals to reduce the surface tension of plain water so that it is easier to spread, as well as soak better into objects. That is known as wet water.
Wow, that was indeed a very interesting fact. I had not heard of wet water before. Thanks. I hope you have enjoyed learning through yet another episode, and this time the theme was about Office English and the language to use for your instant messages, phone calls, and video calls. Remember that if you need help with your English, you should do two things. One, follow us on Learn English with Fun podcast. We are present in many platforms including Spotify, Amazon Music, Google, YouTube, Castbox. Two, check out www.sahasriya.com. We have lots of great online English courses including IELTS PTE courses. My name is Govind and I will see you soon. Stay safe.